Okay, for quiz 7, which covered chapters 19, 20, and 21, the class average was an 80 again, and the scores ranged from 4 out of 10 to 10 out of 10, with the majority of people getting 10 out of 10 on this quiz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people out of the 13 people in the class got a 100 on this quiz, so very good job. Now to go question by question as it loads. We started with chapter 1, or question 1 was in chapter 19 on the developmental considerations regarding psychological trauma and grief. Question 1 said Samaroff's transactional developmental model posits all human development is an adaptation that is shaped by 3 primary levels, the blank, blank, and blank. If you've taken any biology courses, then you kind of know exactly what this is going for anyway, but it's on page 378, where it says the transactional considerations in Samaroff, and the correct answer is genotype, phenotype, and environ type. And so we are looking at your genes, how they express themselves in the phenotype, and then how the environment interacts with that. Introtype is a made-up word, so is multitype. So basically, I just kind of made some things up there. But you're looking for genotype, phenotype, and envirotype, and the majority of the class got that question correct. Question 2, list Maslow's hierarchy of needs, also on page 378 to 379. Maslow is a huge name in psychology, so if you are unfamiliar with it, then I recommend you look at his work. His hierarchy of needs is used in a lot of, as a basis for different types of therapies. But the correct answer was physiological needs, and that's the bottom tier. You have to have those met before you can reach these other tiers. So after you have those basic physiological needs like food, water, shelter, then you're looking for safety and security needs. And so that would be with, I guess that would be more of your shelter. Let's see. Let me look at them. Physiological needs, food, shelter, and clothing. Safety and security needs. Also kind of some of that shelter, your home, things like that. And then the next level is belongingness and love. And so that's looking for acceptance into a family or a peer group and feeling loved by friends, a spouse, etc. Your next level is esteem. And so that is you seeking esteem for yourself, finding purpose in what you do. And then finally, you have self-actualization. And Maslow has argued that a lot of people don't get to that level, but self-actualization refers to that need of, knowing that what you're doing is the right thing and that you're good at what you do, things like that. Question 3. When children blank information, they are incorporating new information into existing ideas. Blank refers to changing their pre-existing ideas to fit their understanding of the world. This is, I believe, in the next chapter. Let me check real quick. Oh, nope, it's not. It's still in chapter 19 on page 381. This is when we're talking about cognitive development with Piaget. And so we're talking about the difference between accommodation and assimilation. So when children assimilate information, they incorporate that new information into existing ideas. So for example, a child knows what a dog is. They have a dog, maybe they have a little schnauzer like I do, and they know a dog has 4 legs. They know a dog barks, a dog has fur. And so assimilation would be, there's a very large difference between a schnauzer and a German shepherd. But assimilation would be incorporating the new information. So you see a German shepherd, and you see that even though it's a lot bigger and maybe the coloring's different, it has 4 legs, it has fur, it has a tail that wags, it barks, so it is a dog. That would be assimilation. Accommodation refers to changing pre-existing ideas to fit their understanding of the world. So, using that same kind of thought, a child will be driving down the road and they'll see a cow in the field and they may go dog because it fits in with their preconceived notion of what a dog is. And so, it has 4 legs, it has a tail. But then they learn that the cow goes moo instead of barking, and that a cow has milk, things like that. And so they accommodate or change their pre-existing idea that this is a dog to better understand, to better fit the understanding of the world. So it's a cow. Let's see. Question 4. Which age of children are more likely to react to trauma with aggressive or inhibited behaviors and psychosomatic complaints? So psychosomatic complaints are like physical complaints. So they're complaining of stomach aches or headaches, things like that. And this is going to be on page 382, still in chapter 19, but where we're talking about our school-age children, adolescents, and preschoolers. And school-age children are the ones that will tend to act aggressively or inhibit their behaviors and then have those psychosomatic complaints. So a child may not want to go to school because their stomach hurts, but really that's anxiety because they're being bullied or something along those lines. Adolescents tend to be more in line with how we would expect adults to act, with experiencing flashbacks, emotional numbing, nightmares, or depression, difficulty with peers, antisocial behavior, those kinds of things, and some of those avoidance factors. School-age children don't really understand avoidance, so they're less likely to do that. And then preschoolers, when they experience a trauma, they frequently exhibit signs of developmental regression. So you may have a 4-year-old that quit sucking his thumb when he was 2, but following a car accident, he goes back to sucking his thumb and crying instead, and crying to get his way instead of using his words. Question 5. Universality refers to the understanding that once the physical body dies, it cannot become alive again. And that is not true. Irreversibility is that understanding that once the physical body dies, it cannot become alive again. Universality refers to the understanding that all living things will eventually die. This is under the developmental considerations in understanding death. On page 387 and 388, there's also non-functionality, and it is the understanding that when a living thing dies, all those life capabilities cease as well. So a lot of younger children think that the dead continue to live, and so they may continue to perform those functions, but once you reach a certain developmental age level, you understand that once you die, that's it. You don't walk anymore, you don't talk anymore, things like that. And then the last one is causality. And this one's a really abstract understanding of the internal and external causes of death. So it's that, these behaviors, death is applicable to all living things in general and not just to one person. But I would definitely look at those 4 pieces and what ages children typically have those abilities to understand causality, non-functionality, etc. Question 6. Explain the 3-dimensional model of mindfulness in 2 to 3 sentences. And to do that, I need to get over here to where mindfulness is talked about in chapter 20. And this is basically, this entire chapter is mindfulness-based practices. And the 3-dimensional model of mindfulness is described on page 402 onto page 404. But it's really summed up very well in figure 20.1. And so the 3 dimensions are attentive awareness, receptive attitude, and intentionality. And these work together and that when you are aware, you're developing focused, sustained awareness of stimuli in the here and now. And so that leads you to approach that awareness with curiosity and openness and acceptance. So you're not against it, you're open and willing to be aware, and you have that receptive attitude that you're willing to pay attention to that. And then you're intentional. So you are deliberately seeking out that attentive awareness and that receptive attitude, and it's not just something that you're letting happen to you. That is what it means to be mindful. Question 7. Victims often suffer from heightened difficulties around the anniversary of a crisis event. That is true. Everyone in the class knew it was true, so we'll just move on. Question 8. And by the way, we're in chapter 21 now with these later questions and preparing for anniversaries. Discussing the past troubling and scary events of a crisis during the school day is counterproductive and should not be done. There was some division in the class on this answer. 5 people said true and 8 people said false. The correct answer is false. It is not necessarily counterproductive, and it's not that it should never be done. It's that it should be done if it is warranted and done in the correct way. So, that is on page 426, where it talks about the goal of addressing anniversaries within the school setting. It says that it may seem counterproductive and that some people worry about talking about these events will upset students. However, appropriately addressing anniversaries can allow students to regain a sense of control over their emotions and the event. So I would look at that section right there if you struggled with that question. And then finally, question 9. The specific age at which children have been reported to achieve an adult understanding of the key components of death has ranged from what age? And let's see if I can find where that was. It was on the top of a page somewhere. I was tricky and went all the way back to chapter 19 for this question, but it's on page 389, where it talks about age and development. And so the specific age at which children have been reported is 5 to 12 years and older. Most studies report that children at age 10 understand each of the key components. So by age 10 usually, but at least by 5 to 12. 4 to 8 is way too young. Not until the teenage years. Children tend to have that ability before they reach the teenage years, and then children under 5 are not going to have that understanding of death. Okay, so that was quiz 7. If there are any questions about that quiz, you can always email me. Definitely look at some of those definitions, especially in that chapter 19 and the developmental considerations as you're studying for your final. Know what mindfulness is in those 3 components, and then know the best practices for preparing for anniversaries, what to do with memorial structures, commemorative events, things like that.